beautiful bill has passed, and they moved up the end date for the electric vehicle tax credit. But turns out, as more people have read through the bill and how it pertains to electric vehicles, it's actually worse than we thought. Great! Because not only is, of course, this going to make pretty much all electric vehicles more expensive, except the expensive ones, it's also going to be substantially eating into zero-emission vehicle credits. So this has actually been a massively profitable stream for Tesla, because for a while now, the federal government had certain emissions requirements from all automakers, meaning they had to, on average, hit a certain miles per gallon across their entire vehicle lineup. And of course, legacy automakers who weren't selling enough EVs were having to buy ZEV credits from the companies who had ZEV credits to spare, like Tesla or Rivian. And now that that's going away, it looks like a lot of automakers will have no reason to buy ZEV credits from these all-electric brands, because while those standards may be in place for states, and of course they're still present in other countries, there's a substantially lower penalty basically for not reaching those standards. So this means that Tesla is going to be taking a substantial hit in the number of ZEV credits that are bringing in pure profit for them. By the way, this was not a revenue versus profit stream for them, because literally it cost them nothing to just sell those credits. You know, there's no logistics, there's no deliveries to worry about. It's literally just a pure profit stream into their bank account that cost them nothing, which is now going away. They've made billions of dollars through the ZEV credits programs over the years, so that's going to be a massive hit for them, alongside all of their most popular vehicles like the Model 3 and Y, which currently are taking full advantage of the $7,500 tax credit. That's all going away. So if Tesla doesn't move fast on their more affordable models, which were supposed to enter production in the first half of this year, though they've still not been announced, here's hoping they actually announce them soon, because the EV tax credit is ending in September. It's July, by the way, so we've got less than 90 days. Even if those more affordable models, though, are $7,500 cheaper, and they have, you know, textile seats and worse range, worse lighting, worse acoustics, worse sound systems, they'll be the exact same price of their present-day Model 3 and Y, which are already not selling all that well.
So those of you that don't know, Elon and Tesla were supposed to be dropping some lower price models. I mean, it's different names of it. Some were saying it's going to be the Robo Taxi, which is a two-seater that has no steering wheel, just a freaking screen monitor, whatever you want to call it. And whenever you're not using it, you can actually put it onto like a quote-unquote Uber network. So Uber and Elon are working together, so on and so on. And it would actually make money for you while you're not using it. But they were also supposed to be dropping a Model Q or 2 or whatever you want to call it, which is a smaller version of a Model 3, which is the smaller car. I don't know. The real question is it time to buy a Tesla? Because if the EV tax credit is going to be disappearing September the 30th or October the 1st, whatever you want to call it, we only got 2 months really essentially to make it happen. And that's to ensure that you get the $7,500 tax credit. For those of you, again, who don't know, the $7,500 tax credit can be established at the beginning of the payment, like on purchase price or in your taxes. If you don't do it that way, and that's just for brand new only, you could get the EV used car tax credit, which would happen anything 2 years or older that is a used EV. As long as it's under $25,000 or $24,999, you get $4,000 up to $4,000 total off of it. So it's kind of like, I'm making this video because I'm thinking to myself, I was just watching this, I was like, this would be great content, because should I buy a Tesla now? Because if not, we're going to be screwed, and now it's going to be $7,500 more, or you got to be paying the real price for it. But when I bought my first Tesla, the purpose of buying it was, man, I get $7,500 off. Even if I put another $75 down, that's $15,000 off the whole car. That's a win-win scenario, and I don't have to pay for gas, X, Y, Z. But let's get back to it. See if he's going to drop some more gems and go from there.
They're having to offer lower interest financing. They're piling up in inventory lots. So honestly, this bill, ironically, because someone at Tesla is taking responsibility for getting this president elected, but Tesla is actually going to be taking the biggest hit. I know the bulls don't want to hear that. All of the mega bulls out there want it to be like, oh, Tesla's got the greatest margins, so they'll be okay. Well, a lot of that margin was coming from the EV tax credit and the ZEV credits, which are both going away. So while you might think, oh, well, the legacy automakers don't have as great a margins on their EVs, so they're not going to be able to afford the EV tax credit going away. Well, that's true, but they've got gas vehicles. That's the majority of their revenue, and that's likely.
A lot of the other car companies, Audi, Toyota, Chevy, GMC, Ford, Lightning, all of those other BMW, they all have gas vehicles. Tesla is fully electric. So they're going to be the ones that's eating this punch to the freaking stomach 10 times worse than all of the other automakers. Also, a sad part about this is where this is kind of, I understand Elon in this portion of it. He funded President Trump $250 million, well, endorsed President Trump $250 million, supported him, brought the kid around, XYZ, went on the stage and, did all the politic antics with Trump. So then Trump then removes this, which is kind of like a punch to the throat, because Tesla was one of the only car makers that was guaranteeing the $7,500 tax credit, as long as you met those criteria, right? But if you actually were to Google the EV tax credit right now, Tesla's like number one to the ones that's going to be able to receive it. There are so many other electric cars that just don't get it at all, or even if they do get it, it's not equivalent to that. I don't know how that all works. I don't know whether it's like a specific battery type or when it was made. I'm not that deep into it. I'm just more of a Tesla guy. But at the end of the day, I was looking at like Taycans and different vehicles. And yeah, whenever you look that up, that list, not everybody receives the EV tax credits.
What they're going to fall back more on. By the way, Nissan is already delaying their next generation EV specifically because of this new bill and how hard it's going to be to make these vehicles profitably. So essentially the bill is impacting and influencing legacy automakers to pull back on their investment with EVs. So Tesla's going to take a hit, and I think legacy automakers are just going to keep making more gas cars, and people are probably going to keep buying them because we have a baby drill based economy right now, and gas prices are already on the decline with no end in sight. More and more emission standards being chillaxed means that it's going to be a tougher sell for electric vehicles for the next few years. But I wanted to talk outside of Tesla in this video too, because I just want it to be clear they're taking by far the biggest hit because of this bill, but the startups also are going to have more of an uphill battle because Rivian already was collecting hundreds of millions of dollars through these ZEV credits that are going away, and those are all coming from within the United States. Rivian is not an international brand yet. Tesla will probably still get some ZEV credits from Europe and in Asia and at the state level, but Rivian is probably going to be taking a big hit when it comes to ZEV credit revenue, and of course they don't have very thick margins to work with. Their vehicles themselves, most of them were not qualifying for the EV tax credit anyway because they were too expensive or they had LFP batteries which were imported. So on the vehicle deliveries side of things, I don't actually think the EV tax credit going away is going to impact Rivian's demand all that much. Tesla definitely will, but it's really not going to have a huge influence on their future. Some people are making the argument that this is going to hurt R2, but you'll notice if you go back and watch when they unveiled the R2, they never said $45,000 was the price they were aiming for after federal incentives, although that was a question people brought up a lot. Is the $45K before or after incentives? And they said, essentially, we'll see. They were like, that's just the price point we want to hit. We're not exactly sure what credits are going to be available when this vehicle launches, which seems like it was wise of them to not promise that or bake that in. But I think regardless of if the EV tax credit was staying or not, Rivian was never going to launch the R2 at $45,000. That is the aspirational starting price that's likely going to take a few years for them to hit, similar to what we saw with the launch of the Model 3 and the Model Y. They originally on both of those vehicles were hoping to hit $35K or $39K, and it wasn't until about 2 to 3, maybe 4 years for some of them before they were actually even able to come close to that aspirational starting price, but Rivian is such a high desirable brand right now. The R1S is crushing it, best-selling vehicle in its price segment, and I think we're going to see a similar response to the R2. So while yes, it's definitely going to be harder for them to secure the profit margins they want on the R2, and I'm sure the tax credit would have helped, we also know from their earnings calls that the R2 was going to be dependent on imported 4695 cells from South Korea for the first 6 months of production anyway. As far as we can tell, they did not have a supply chain in place for 4695 cells built within the US for the R2, and the R2 didn't appear to have a backup plan to use 2170 cells or LFP prismatic cells or anything like that. So in Rivian's defense, as much of a hit as they'll probably take on ZEV credits, I actually don't think the R2 was going to qualify for the federal tax credit anyway. And also similar to the refresh Model Y that launched earlier this year, I think the R2 is going to launch with a special edition, you know, launch series kind of vehicle with a lot more accessories included, maybe some limited edition badging and features that are baked in, but of course at a premium price point. Rivian's assembly line is not going to be able to keep up with hundreds of thousands of vehicles being delivered within their first year. So because the delivery numbers are going to be low anyway, Rivian is likely going to prioritize the higher trims of the R2 first, probably dual or tri-motor to start off with, and the bigger battery pack with more range, and maybe they throw in a bunch of Rivian accessories to sweeten the deal, nicer tires or a free color option. But I still think the first R2s off the line are going to be $60,000 to $70,000 vehicles that sure don't qualify for the tax credit, but unlikely they were going to qualify anyway because they're going to have imported cells for the first 6 months of production. Outside of Rivian, you know, Lucid I think is actually probably going to be one of the existing EV makers that takes the least amount of a hit because none of their vehicles qualify for the EV tax credit, because so far at least they've mostly been delivering sedans, which had a much lower price cap for the tax credit at 55 grand, and the cheapest Lucid Air was like 70 grand, right? So doesn't really affect Lucid all that much. Yes, there were technically some aspirational targets for the Lucid Gravity to get under 80K to qualify for the credit, but they've barely started delivering the Gravity as is, and the only ones they're delivering right now are like the Dream Edition and the Grand Touring. All of them are six figures, so they were not qualifying for the tax credit. Plus, because Lucid's in the premium sedan space, they were not selling that many vehicles anyway with the Lucid Air. I mean, relative to Rivian delivering tens of thousands of vehicles a quarter, Lucid was around 3,000 per quarter, which is good for a premium sedan, but my point is they're not recognizing that much ZEV credit revenue, and the Gravity for the next year or so wasn't probably going to qualify anyway because the vast majority of the trims of the Gravity were going to be over that $80,000 limit. But similar to the story with the R2, Lucid does have a mid-size vehicle on the horizon that's supposed to be cheaper, somewhere around the $50,000 price point. I'm sure they would have liked the credit, but they haven't even unveiled it yet, and Lucid is kind of known for being a pricier, more luxurious vehicle. So I don't think they were banking on just the super low pricing to be what saves them. We knew it was going to be somewhat affordable anyway because it's a Lucid at the end of the day, and maybe after a few years of producing the mid-size Lucid Earth, whatever it's called, they'll be able to hit their goal of low $50,000. But yeah, Lucid is just not a very price-conscious brand, so I don't think.
All right, man. I honestly just wanted to hear about Tesla and Rivian because that's where I'm interested in on the next car purchase, aka car number 36 at 33 years old. Probably gonna be a Tesla Model X, and clearly I have a month and 23 days to make that purchase. Yeah, man. If y'all are interested in EV stuff, make sure that you let me know in the comments. I not a fan of the whole political side of it, but I do like Teslas, so I will 100% post more content if that's what y'all are interested in. As usual, my man, be you, be true, let the universe do the rest. The rest of this video will be down low in the subscription, in the description. Make sure y'all have a great day, and I'll holler at you.